All right, I'm also gonna do a live stream on Facebook in case anybody catches it later and can jump on that way. All right. Cool, so it's being live streamed. Let me stop the share real quick and make sure I get the actual drawing for the park up. Cool. All right. So you all can see kind of like the mock-up for the park design on your screen. Thumbs up if you can.
Yeah, we can see it.
Great. Awesome. Hey, Scott, how's it going?
Good, good. And yourself,
Good.
Andre?
Doing well, doing well. Had a long city council meeting, but it was one of the not so crazy ones. So I will take that. Glad to see folks on board. So Alderman Vasquez here, 40th Ward. Thank you all so much for making the Zoom call and the community meeting to discuss Park 599 and kind of where the progress has been. I feel good because there is progress to report, but we are joined by the Department of Law from the city, CDOT, and the Park District to kind of talk through the different parts of what's been going on. So before we kind of get started and hand it off to folks to kind of talk through their piece, wanted to establish some ground rules. So as I stated, this is recorded and also being live streamed for those folks who can't make the call. As we have speakers present or to speak, if you have any questions, please feel free to write them in the chat. What we'll do is once everybody's kind of gone through their updates, we will then go into the questions on the chat and ask those of the different parties that are here. And once we get through those chat questions, we'll then open it up for folks who still have questions, at which point we would ask for you to raise your hand. And I am joined right now by Morgan Mataram, who is our Director of Infrastructure and Community Engagement and will be chairing the meeting. So once we get through the chat questions, we will then open it up. If you raise your hand by hitting the reaction button and going to the raise your hand piece, then Morgan will call on you and then we'll go in order so everyone gets the opportunity to ask questions and we're mindful of each person's time. So I introduced Morgan, if you want to say hi, because sometimes I do the introductions, I feel weird. I'd rather have the people talk. So.
Hi, everyone. This is just my second week at the ward office and I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Also with us, I guess we'll go in order of the different departments that I'll be speaking. So with Department of Law, I know I saw Arthur on. Arthur, if you're able to say hello and if there's anyone else.
Hi, this is Arthur Delinsky. I'm an attorney with the city's law department. I'm working to get the sale closed, hopefully sooner than later.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Next up, we've got a couple of folks from CDOT. So Bill, if you want to introduce first, and then Jerry, you can jump in.
Sure, I'm Bill Higgins. I am the manager of the public way unit that did the plan review for the medical center's PD when it came through, as well as helped out with the vacation and dedication for the reconfiguration of the alley.
Thank you, Bill.
Hey, everybody. My name is Jerry. I'm an aldermanic menu liaison, primarily dealing with the 40th Ward with local infrastructure in general. But beyond that, just helping keep things moving with CDOT in the 40th Ward. Good to see you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Jerry. And then we've got Sarah from the Park District.
Hey everyone, Sarah White with the Park District. I am the design PM for the new Park 599 construction project. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. And then also we have ComEd. Omar, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening. Omar Martinez, External Affairs Manager for Chicago North, including this ward. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So yeah, well, we've got all the folks here. I think we'll start with Arthur, who kind of has the beginning run of show and can talk through like the checklist of items to see where we're currently at and what the progress has been. So just a quick briefer. I know this is something that we talked for I think a number of years now. And in the past year, I kind of took the same strategy we did with the Metra station process, which is basically getting all the stakeholders on one email so we can all kind of get on the same page and be able to talk through what checklist of items look like and be able to get some more progress here. So Arthur, if you'd care to kind of fill in on where we've been and where we're currently at.
Sure, thank you for the introduction, Alderman. Do you know if the developer or the developer's attorney is on this Zoom, just so that they have an opportunity to respond to what I'm saying? Because what I'm saying is just going off the checklist, but they may have some updates.
Sure, I talked to Michael as well as Matt. They do have the link. So I don't know if they've jumped on yet, but Morgan, if you could follow up with Michael Lerner and be able to see, because he did get the link. He double checked with us yesterday. So we'll follow up.
Okay, and you'd just like me to run through a high level overview of the checklist at the at this meeting? Okay. So first, as a lot of people on this call know, the land had some contamination since it had been a medical center. So we're looking for the seller to provide an updated phase 1, which is an environmental study assessment. Also on the checklist, and a lot of these items have already been closed, so I'm just going to look to the ones that are still open. The seller is going to be needing to provide us a letter confirming that they've satisfied certain conditions in the purchase and sale agreement. Also the deed, we do have a deed in escrow for the conveyance from the seller to the city. Now that some of the land has been vacated, as people who are familiar with this area know, that there was a 16-foot east-west alley running through the property that's now going to be conveyed to the city and then to the park district. We'll need the seller to include that additional legal description in the deed so that the city acquires not just 2 halves, but a whole once we get the land from the seller. The seller is also going to be conveying to us portions of PINs. PINs are the property identification number that you see on your tax bill. And most people who own a home just have a single PIN. In this case, the seller is going to be conveying to us multiple PINs, but also parts of PINs. And in order to convey to the city parts of PINs, we need the seller to complete an application to divide the PIN. That will get filed with the county, but we need the seller to provide it in advance so that both I and the park district staff can review it. The seller also has various punch list items that the park district has requested be done, and the city wants them done as well. This was based upon a recent walkthrough that the park district performed. Actually, not sure the day of the walkthrough, but the date of the analysis of the walkthrough was last December 16th. And this includes the developers installing sod, installing trees along the parkway, replacing a curb, replacing a ramp along Edgewater that was damaged. In developer, and I'm sorry, I'm saying developer, it is the seller, just frequently I talk to these people as developers. Adding fill to the lot, cutting down the foundation, completing the paving within the alley, maintaining the construction fence in place until construction is complete. That's referring to the existing construction fence, making improvements to the parkway along Hollywood, coordinating with CDOT for the repair of the void in the southeast corner of the park, filling a vault that ComEd has determined is not theirs. That's between the western alley and the park and the former alley right of way, and coordinating with ComEd for the removal of a ComEd pole and a guide wire that's from the western alley. So those were all, I know I ran through them quickly. Those were all items covered in the punch list inspection that the park district performed. And I think there may have been a city rep on site for that as well. We've also asked the seller to provide a survey, a current survey of the property. The one we have is old and would not be sufficient for getting the title insurance that the city needs when we actually close. So that's going through the checklist very quickly. I realized the main thing is that there are some items that are just paperwork, such as completing or preparing a draft application for the PIN divisions. Getting an updated phase 1 is something that the developer can get from their that the seller can obtain from their environmental consultant, and updating the deed to include the vacated alley. The rest of the items that I mentioned in the laundry list are the punch list items that, in order for the park district to want to take title to this land from the city, because the city is an intermediary in this case, the land will go from the seller to the city, from the city to the park district. The park district needs, and these were items that were identified in the purchase and sale agreement, the land to be pretty much ready to have a park built upon it. The park district doesn't have the funds available to make all these improvements to the land once it's conveyed from the city. And in fact, I don't think the park district wants to take title to the land until these punch list items that have gone through have been addressed by the seller. So we definitely need to work with the seller to make sure that these paperwork items that I think can be done very quickly, get done very quickly, and that the punch list items, other than the items that may be contingent upon weather, such as plantings, they're not going to be planting a tree at the end of February, the beginning of March, they need to wait a little bit, but that we get everything else done as timely as we can. And that's the quick and dirty of the checklist, Alderman. Do you have any questions for me at this time, or do you want to hold off?
So I think what we'll do, so Michael Lerner is on the call as well. So I think he's able to hear kind of the take, but I want to also go through CDOT and the departments, because I know we had talked to CDOT about we're addressing potentially some of those items like the vaults and figuring out how to get that going. So I'd rather we go to CDOT then the park district to kind of get an assessment of where we're at on now currently, based on some of the punch list items, and then we can have Michael Lerner kind of speak to kind of what he's seeing.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Arthur. So next up, we'll have Bill kind of talk through what you're seeing and, you know, what progress there has been.
Sure. I can confirm the vaults that were filled on Hollywood were accepted by our Department of Underground. That was all sufficient. Also, I believe there's some vaults on the Ashland side that the developer does have permits for, and they were all brought up to current standards and whatnot as part of the development there. Jamie, I don't know if you want to jump on and speak to anything regarding the build out of the alley, or if you're available.
Just in hearing.
Let me look and see.
Sorry, Bill, were you talking about me or someone else?
Oh, you said Jamie. Do you mean Jerry?
Jerry, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Got it. My apologies there. Yeah, Jerry.
My mistake.
Oh, no worries.
So from what I'm aware, we had a green alley build out. They didn't encounter a vault in the alley. And from what I heard, they covered it and we're all set and good. In case I'm not fully up to date on this, I did speak with some upper management at CDOT that said we had plans in place to perhaps get funding to do any additional work necessary, and that'd be coming up soon in the spring.
Yep. Yeah, I know I talked to Deputy Commissioner Tom Carney about that. So it is being brought forth to look at TIF funding, because there was a TIF created there to support kind of changes. So that should be going through the process, because I think a couple of months back, we were looking at the vaults that weren't filled, and I got on the horn with people and I was like, look, there's a TIF there. If CDOT gets the funding from the TIF that's existing, can CDOT get it done to get it moving? So I do believe in the last conversation I had with Tom, that was where things were going as far as like the regular calls to see what TIF could support.
Yep.
Yeah, that was.
I heard as well, and with your support, Alderman, that just makes it easier. Thanks.
100%.
And hi, this is Arthur Delinsky. If I may interrupt,
yeah,
it may be helpful, depending on how much detail you want to go into, for people to identify which vault is being discussed. It's my understanding that there is more than one vault on this property. So You know, there was the vault that people had thought may have been ComEd. There's also vault under the eastern alley. I think there's a vault between the western alley and the park. So, you know, before we say that the seller has performed the vault work, I think is better to say the vault has, the seller has performed the vault work with respect to a particular vault, and then specify which vault that is.
Right. As I said, the Hollywood Avenue vault work has been filled in and accepted by CDOT. I believe the vault in the western alley that was believed to be ComEd, but they said was not theirs, so probably an older vault from some time ago. That's the one that was encountered while doing the Green Alley update, and that's being addressed by CDOT.
And I think there is an additional, a portion of that Hollywood vault under the east alley, right where it would have extended under the alley towards Ashland Avenue, that still needs filled. And the alley
Right.
itself needs to be restored.
Right, and that'll be part of the restoration.
I know when I put the ask out, I was very clear and open to go, whatever vaults are open, let's fill them all out. And if you got to pay for it, let's pay for it just to get it going. So good to see that some of them are done. And I guess the ones that are not, are we looking at it and saying, who are we putting the responsibility on and getting that done? Is that a CDOT thing, and we're going to figure out the funding? Or is that something where we're looking at Michael, I guess, to kind of fill in on some of the other ones, just for clarity?
I believe it's split on that too. The western alley where we're building out the green alley is going to be taken care of by CDOT, is my understanding, with the funding as mentioned. I believe the eastern alley is part of the perimeter restoration requirements of Michael and the seller and developer. So that'll be done as part of the PD requirements.
Got it. And then Arthur, I saw you're unmuted. I don't know if you were going to add to that.
I thought I might need to, but I think Bill is clearer than I could have been, so.
Got it. Okay.
Thank
Thank you.
Well, this is
Glad to
Mike.
hear that. Yeah, Mike?
This is Mike Lerner. You know, we really can't do, I don't know what vaults are under the alley on the, that would be the western boundary of our building, but you know, that we can't do anything in that alley until we get the, you know, until the park gets filled, until we can't work on those, you know, the ramps, the curbs, the things you guys are talking about. We've built the curb to, you know, to delineate the park, but there's nothing else we can do there until the park actually, you know, gets until you bring your fill in.
We should talk about that. We don't intend to bring in topsoil, and it's going to be one of the last thing that goes into the park, right? Because we have to build our stormwater infrastructure, own the site. There's a lot of things that have to happen. So
Yeah.
we should just figure out a way to coordinate that.
I don't think we can do anything though until you guys until you get in there and do that work.
Well, I think that's probably where there's a difference of opinion we're trying to figure out. So first, let's talk to Park District
Yeah.
to get their take on it, and then we'll circle
Okay.
back.
Okay.
Yep. That sounds good. So thanks Alderman for having us tonight. Last time we were in front of the community was in May 2021, where we showed a couple of concepts for the site. After the meeting, we received some comments from the community, and the overwhelming support was to move forward with this kind of curvilinear plan for the park. Since that time, we've been working closely with CDOT, with Mike Lerner, to make sure that some of these closing checklist items were resolved so that the city could take ownership of the site and ultimately transfer the property to the park district. So I think we've made some really good progress. As you heard, there's a couple of outstanding items that we have to take care of. But we are in parallel to all of this coordination going on with the city and the seller, advancing the park drawings. So the good news is once we have the real estate issues ironed out, we will be ready to go engage a contractor and build the park. So we are advancing towards 95% drawings at the end of March. We'll be updating our survey sometime in early March and moving the project through permitting. And so part of the reason we're excited about getting some of these punch list items wrapped up is because part of our permitting process will be to move through zoning. This is a PD, so we'll be required a part 2 review. So we do need to make sure that the perimeter restoration items that are required by the PD and by CDOT are addressed so that we can be allowed to move forward and build the park once we control the site. So, so there are still some things to coordinate, but I do feel like we've made really huge progress, especially over the last few weeks. And I feel like we've got some momentum, and I'm looking forward to getting this constructed.
Thank you for that, Sarah. So then looking at kind of the summary from everybody, it appears things have been moving forward compared to where they were initially. We're looking as well within the city to figure out funding to cover up some of the vaults. Oh, I know Omar is here on the call, and we did talk about a ComEd pole that happens to be on the western side of the lot where the alley is. So Omar, just didn't know if there were updates from ComEd about that.
No, no real updates at this time. I spoke with the developer, and basically, it's my understanding that they should have been working with an engineer. So really just trying to kind of close that gap and get that kind of settled out. But
Okay.
I don't anticipate it's any major concern. I believe that pole is powering a different property, so it's not directly tied to this. So it's just a matter of coordination and ensuring, we don't just move that and disconnect someone else, unexpectedly.
Got it.
I think, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Mike.
I think that pole was just put up there temporarily because when they extended the alley. So it's just, I'm not sure what it's doing, but it's sitting in the middle of the park. It needs to be moved back onto the existing, alley, your alley, which is going, east and west on beyond the park.
Right.
Right.
So
I think that was just a temporary pole. In terms of that vault that's there, I don't even know what that is. ComEd says it's not their vault, but it does say ComEd on it. And it's clearly abandoned.
Sure.
And half of it's under, the new alley.
okay. No, I appreciate that. And just for reference for folks, Omar started in this role with ComEd, I believe, a month or less.
Yeah.
So we just got him on board as this thing is moving. So now we're making sure hey, here's the issue we're seeing. Let's figure out who we need to talk to at ComEd to kind of get that ball rolling as well. And so I appreciate that within the first month, Omar's like, yep, I'll get on the call and let's get the information. So thank you for that.
But also, Sarah, in terms of the park work, I think that we've built that curb that you requested on the east side of the park, and that curbs should be complete now. And
That's great.
that should allow you to do anything you need to do inside the park. And we don't feel as though we can come back and do any repairs on the alley or those aprons until, some of that equipment is moved in and, that work is complete.
Oh, okay.
Great.
Well, our acceptance of the property is contingent on the perimeter restoration items being complete, right? So the alley is part of that. So I think we just need to coordinate our sequencing because
Legally you can't move forward at all until it's part of yours.
Yeah,
And it's gonna be yours, so the checklist items are done.
yeah,
Well,
and
but-
honestly, once we have a finished park, we're not going to want you driving equipment through the park to fix the alley.
Wait. No, it's the opposite. We don't want you, the only place you can enter that park now is on our alley or the alley that backs on our building. And that, we don't want that alley to be damaged while you bring your equipment in there.
Well, we could work around that. So if we needed to, that's not a problem. It's not a very complex construction operation to build the park ultimately. So I think that's something we can absolutely coordinate.
And it's a public alley. So,
It's a public alley
but they'll do their best, I'm sure, not to interfere with, your tenants' use of it or do anything that might damage your building. That's my hope. So.
But I mean, Sarah, I think we should probably meet out there. It's a little more complicated. If we put a new alley down, I don't know, I think that would be counterproductive to the neighborhood because you're gonna have to bring a lot of topsoil in and a lot of, there's a lot of things that you need to do using that alley to access the park. It's
So
only,
I think, Mike, the challenge is because of legality of when they can or cannot come in, what would be counterproductive is stalling the checklist. So
Yes.
I agree with you. Let's all figure out a second time to be there on site. But hearing what I'm hearing as far as what legally Park District is gonna be able to do or not to do, I don't think this is a option about what comes first more than this doesn't move and they don't take any ownership and can't even be on there until the other things are done. So we're all gonna have to sit there and sort it out, but ultimately, those checklist items need to be completed for them to even do any of the part that they would do.
I understand what you're saying, sir. We probably should just meet out there and see what's the most convenient way for them to get
Okay.
into the park then.
So let's figure out a
Because you-
time
because
either.
you're
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, because you're not gonna be able to come in through your new alley anymore. You're not gonna have the access to the park through that, that new alley that you built. Because it's a water permeable alley, it'll sink. So I think we ought to just spend some time out there and look at the best way.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk through it. And I think when we're on site, we'll figure out exactly how that would be executed post everything getting done for the checklist in a way that makes you feel comfortable to go, okay, then we're doing this. Now, I guess the second question I've got for you is the paperwork portion, right? So the work is one thing. There's also the paperwork items that Arthur mentioned. So as far as you and Matt, your lawyer, like, how's that looking?
Well, Arthur, I think that I saw your email today. Matt says that he's provided you with the 6 pins, the topo, and the survey. So
Arthur, have you received it on your end?
So I'll just quickly flip through the checklist and so the updated phase 1, we're waiting on that. And that needs to come with a reliance letter naming the city and the park district as parties that can rely on the environmental consultant. The topographical survey, I think the park district is going to try to get one. Is that correct, Sarah?
Yeah, so we've got an extension of our surveyor's contract wrapped up and they're gonna be out there early March.
Okay, and I show that in my checklist that the seller did provide one dated April 8th, 2021, and that the park district anticipates getting a new one. When it comes to the revised deed, that's something that I think your attorney can get out to me pretty easily. The pin division applications, I haven't seen those yet. Those are the 2 pins,
but I think there's actually 6.
but there's only 2 that need the pin division, is my recollection.
Oh, okay.
So, but you are correct. There are more than 2 pins being conveyed to the city. And then just the current survey being certified to the city and park district. We didn't have that certification in the prior survey that you provided to us, is my recollection.
I think I've seen I think I have a certified survey.
Yes, certified to us, certified to the park district and the city.
Yeah, okay.
And if you have it, that would be great. If you could have Matt send that to me, please.
Now, see, our contract is with the city, not with the park district. So some of this may be addressed to the park district. I think part of the stuff that you're talking about, and this is what Matt complains to me about, or not complains, he says that there's a misunderstanding, is our contracts with the city. We've provided, a lot of these things he thinks are not relevant because we have an NFR at this point. So some of those things that were question marks prior when we were supposed to get a temporary, letter, no longer are necessary.
Before Arthur answers, could you clarify for folks what NFR is?
Well, this means that the state, who's the governing body, has blessed the entire site. So we don't have to in other words, we don't have to prove up every one of the questions that people are asking because the state's gone over the entire site and blessed it.
Got it. So Arthur, what's your take on that?
So NFR
I'm sorry.
stands for no further remediation. And a no further remediation letter is something that the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency will provide to a property owner after the land has been remediated in accordance with a plan that the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency has signed off on.
Right.
And all that we're asking for is that a phase one within 180 days of closing. It's just so that we have something showing the current, one second, sorry. So that we have something just within 180 days, that's the environmental standard for a purchaser to obtain.
Okay.
And you already, the developer, the seller already has a phase one. So it's just a matter of the seller's
Okay.
environmental consultant giving an update letter.
Okay, so we can give you an update letter on that if it's been more than 180 days. Also, who does the reliance letter go to?
The reliance letter is prepared by the so I'm not giving you legal advice. The environmental letter is prepared by the environmental consultant and just says that the property owner plus the city and plus the
Right.
park district can rely on it. That's
Okay.
all. So a one pager.
Okay,
Okay.
and we have not done that yet. Arthur?
No. And it's because of the time that's dragged on with, you know,
The 180,
trying
over
to get all
180
the
days
work
have
done
passed
and
and now you need another
coordinating
form.
everything. So if we had closed in the past, when everyone thought we would, you had a current phase one at that time. So it's
Mhm.
just due to the lapse of time.
Okay,
Okay, so there's, just to clarify, you need the letter because it's been more than 180 days. Also, 2 pin divisions and 6 pins that were already sent. Right, Arthur?
Yeah, the
What's-
PIN division applications are required by the county when you're selling less than an entire pin. So let's say you own a
Right.
lot for your house and you're selling somebody 5 feet of your 25 feet somehow.
Right.
You would do a PIN division.
Because the pin would be the whole property, but we're talking about the plot of land behind the building, right?
I think.
This is actually on the west side of the park with
Okay.
2 pins where
There's
we're
one-
just getting a partial.
Yeah, there's one lot that's not included. So Arthur, can Matt call you directly just to get direction on that?
Yeah, and he said he'd have it for the closing. That was one of his comments previously. I just need the opportunity to review it in advance of the closing, and it's something that can be filled out now. So
Okay.
that's why I'm asking for it sooner than later, please.
And the other thing that I know we're required to do is plant trees in the parkway, which we can't do now. Or it's not a good idea to do now.
Right, so that's getting back to the park side of things, which I defer to Sarah on the coordination for that, if you don't mind, Sarah.
Yeah, no problem. It's actually a CDOT requirement. It's part of the perimeter restoration agreement that the parkways be restored and parkway trees be planted in compliance with the landscape ordinance. So it's another issue. And this all just goes back to our zoning approvals. So those things need to be done in order for us to get through permitting. So
But
it's
we don't want
before.
to, we don't want to wait to plant that trees for you to start, do we?
Yeah, no, they have to
Um,
wait. You have to do all those things for them to even look at it or touch it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
we,
just
I mean,
law.
it's technically, yeah, that's the sequence of things. So, I mean, the biggest issue here, I think, is the alley restoration, because we just don't have budget to include that in our project. I mean, that would probably eat up our whole project budget. So that's what we're most concerned about. But technically, the parkway restoration, sod placement, trees should be complete as well, or there should be an agreement in place that they will be planted at a certain time.
Yeah, obviously you wouldn't be planting trees out there right now. It's too cold still. But we can, to absolve you of that requirement from CDOT, we can, if we have in writing that you'll be putting them in later in the year, that's acceptable. And we can work that out with our landscape folks.
Okay, so the few times that we've been out there also, CDOT has not been there, so we don't quite understand some of the things CDOT's requesting for us on the west, in the west alley. I mean, we're prepared to finish the alley. And I really think, Sarah, you should take a, I understand there's a legal aspect to this, but this is the way you're going to access the park with your equipment and stuff. I think we ought to look at this and try to coordinate it a little bit. The alleys, a portion of the alley, something, so you can get into the park, into the space.
Well, and the challenge there is, again, it's got to go to the city before it even gets to CPD.
I know it's a
Right.
little bit of a, yeah.
So that goes back to Bill going, hey, here's the things. To Bill's point, if they're willing to accept a letter about the trees in the parkway,
Okay.
I'd say it's in your best interest to get that letter ASAP, send that on
Okay.
over to at least get some latitude on that. But Bill, like talking through the alley, is the alley similar or is the alley like, no, that has to get done?
I think the alley has to get done, and really alleys, even the green alley we put in are designed to handle garbage trucks and moving vans and everything else. So there shouldn't be any issue with getting the materials into the alley. And
Well,
Right, and we're used to restoring pavement if we need to. I mean,
Yeah.
there won't be like super heavy equipment used to put down topsoil and sod, and a sidewalk. So this is all stuff we deal with, restoration of pavement and stuff all the
Yeah.
time.
So it all sounds to me like, Mike, you write the letter for the trees because you're getting some latitude on there from CDOT. The alley seems like this is the non-negotiable. That thing just has to get done. And if something
Well-
happens to the alley, they'll do the restoration on it. But to Bill's point, the alley should be built able to sustain a certain amount of weight. So if that thing's breaking apart because you got some trucks on it, then it says the alley wasn't built right in the first place. Would be the challenge I'd have.
Come on, that'll never happen. But we have done, the last time we were out there, we decided that we wanted to cut down the retaining wall and build the new curb, which we were complete. We're ready to go. So we could pour this alley. CDOT was not out there at the time, those last couple of
Right.
meetings, but we're ready to go with the alley, and we certainly, our tenants want it. We have 50 people living there now.
Oh, no, we're aware. So okay. So when can we get the alley started?
I'm not sure how the weather affects that, but I think but I'll find out. But not, within the next month, I would think.
Okay,
But
all right.
but I'd
So
like to, I'd like to meet Sarah out there, make sure that we're not doing something that's,
sure. So
that we
let's,
have to-
I'm open to figuring out this week or next week, get everybody on site in the morning. Well, if we get that locked in on a date, we'll send it out to Scott and Laura again to see if we get everybody on there to put eyeballs on this thing and then like really wrap a bow on the things that need to get done.
And
that
then Bill, can you let the alderman know who from your department should be there regarding the alley?
Yeah, that would be critical. I think I'd like to see it out there.
yeah, well, I don't know, Jerry, if that would be you or someone in the public way inspection team that should be out for that, or
Wouldn't be me specifically, but we can
okay.
definitely get someone from the department out there.
Okay.
Alderman, let us know when we need to be on
yeah,
site.
well,
And then if we're talking public way, is that Lisa?
No, I don't think so. I think specifically for maybe Lisa. But if it is Lisa, I think we'd want to get an engineer out there as well, just to
Okay.
have some backup.
All right, so I'll follow up with CDOT just to figure out who that person is. We'll get a time on the calendar in the next week to all just like literally just walk through the last items. We'll look at the alley thing, and my gut tells me, I'm not psychic, Mike, but my gut tells me they're all gonna say, get the alley done. So at that point, it'll be on you to get it done within the month.
I think
yeah.
it could be done in a few days. I mean, the alley actually.
Look, what I don't want you selling dreams out here where we're telling people a couple of days and then I get 2 weeks.
No,
and
no,
everyone's
no,
coming
I
down
mean-
Yeah,
behind.
can you pour asphalt before April?
No, I'm saying the work can be done in a couple of days, depending on whether it's, the weather permitting. I mean, we did build that wall, the wall we
Mhm.
talked about, the retaining wall, so that's done. So
Okay.
all we have to, so we need to now put this the binder coat of the asphalt down, weather
then to-
permitting.
To Sarah's question, as far as being able to pour asphalt before April, how are you confident are you on that?
I don't know exactly what the dates are, when it's safe to bore that.
Okay, so we'll need some clarity on that.
I
as
mean,
well.
we need some temperature on that. But
Okay.
we can figure that out pretty quickly.
Okay. All right, so sounds to me like next week we're finding a time, CDOT, Mike, Sarah, and we'll all kind of sort that out. And then Arthur's been pretty clear on the paperwork aspects that need to get done. And so we've got I think, I want to say you sent it Monday or could have been yesterday, Arthur, as far as the latest checklist.
Yeah, I sent an update yesterday, which just had some additional information from CDOT and from Parks, so it was clear what the current status is. So I think both Mr. Lerner and his attorney have that.
Okay,
Okay, so Matt can get this done as soon as, it's right away. I just would like to meet out there and make sure that we're doing the right things,
yeah, I get it.
Don't have to-
So- So I'll follow up like I have been every Monday. First
Yes,
to
sir.
double check that you and Matt were able to meet kind of the paperwork part. That sounds to me fairly straightforward. So I'll double check on that with you all. And then sometime during the week, next week, we'll all meet up to just talk through the logistics and what's getting done next. Because again, Park District ain't moving on anything up until the point that it's legally theirs to be able to get on there. And that does require the checklist items getting done. So we'll to kind of be fair, we'll walk through this stuff with you on site to be able to talk through it. Cool? That work for you, Mike?
It's fine, but our contractors with the city, I don't know if that makes a difference.
No, I mean, that's why we have CDOT in there because, right, it's like to Arthur's point, we're the intermediary. So it's got to go through the city before it goes to Park District,
Mhm.
which is more reason why Park District can't even set foot on it till it gets past everything else with the city. That's why we want the checklist items that are on paperwork as well as the alley. But to be fair, because you're making the point about the alley, we'll all go with you on site and literally walk you through how the alley needs to get done and then how Park District is going to access what they need to put the topsoil and everything else done.
And just to be clear, the checklist that I prepared is based upon the purchase and sale agreement between Mr. Lerner's entity and the city.
Mm-hmm.
And when we drafted that agreement, we took into account the Park District's needs.
Right.
So it is an obligation to the city, but it is going to benefit the Park District in the end. That's why the Park District needs to have so much input, because the city
Right.
may say, oh, this looks like what we needed under the agreement, and the parks may say, yeah, but it actually needs to be moved 5 feet this way or something. I don't know.
Right. So you're getting all the coordination on that. And so am I understanding correctly that once the city has all that checked off, then it's like a speed lane because you've already checked with Park District as to their needs?
Yes, because the Park District is the entity that assisted us in preparing the checklist of items that were needed to close. And so they're in the best position to assist us in coming up with saying, done, not yet done, done, partially done, going through the items.
Okay. And then since we're talking through all this, just to double check, there's still the vaults and like the CDOT potentially being the ones taking it on and the funding for that. What part does that play in either slowing this thing up or speeding it up as far as that getting done?
If you're asking me from a legal standpoint, I am not troubled by who's getting the work done as long as it gets done promptly and in accordance with city standards. So CDOT's in the best position to be able to verify that the work is done, and it's just a matter of who's going to actually perform the work. And I think Bill's already addressed that for one of the vaults. So
okay. All right. So that was a whole lot, and I'm glad we're able to talk through it a lot in front of the neighbors to kind of have an understanding of where things are moving, what some of the hitches are, and what next steps we're going to take on that. So I'll go to the questions on the chat. Scott, I know you had your hand up, so if you want to unmute, because I saw your question, but I figured you might want to clarify now.
Thank you everyone for presenting. To be honest, it was hard to follow a lot of it. There's so many open-ended issues. So the first one I was trying to understand was, I thought we needed some additional funding that you're going to the city council to try to get TIF funding for. Yeah,
So
are we
that-
still-
Yeah, that's part of what we were talking as far as filling in some of the vaults that are there. So that's kind of the last question I've been asking is, does that slow anything up
Okay.
based on the checklist?
Okay, so that's another element of timing and all this. So just to boil it all down into the simplest form for what people want to know more than anything else is, when will the park get done? You know, if we start putting all these checkpoints in, is it realistic that the park would even start filling in and planting by summertime? I mean, you may not be able to give a confirmed answer, but just thinking of all these checkpoints,
Mhm.
you know, the alley, you can't even start the alley until April timeframe, and all that's got to be signed off, and the transfer from one entity to another, you know, nothing happens, you know, like really quick. So is it, with all these things that need to be found, funding to fill in the vaults and stuff, is it even viable that this will happen this year? I think that's what everybody here wants to know, more than anything. To boil
Well,
it down in simplest terms.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, Bill, I saw you unmute.
I was just gonna say the outstanding vault with the TIF funding is the one on the West Alley, is my understanding. If we get that moving, and if Michael and his team can get moving on the alley come April, to your point, I can't exactly guarantee anything, but I think from that point, Arthur, with the transaction of the property, be able to move forward.
Once all, I mean, that's just one of the items in the punch list.
Right. There's a
So,
couple
but
other
I think
details, but
that- Yeah, I think that's one of the big items.
yeah,
So I think knocking out the big items would definitely bring us a lot closer to the closing.
right. Like to my point earlier, the trees and some things like that are a little bit more flexible, that and a number of the smaller items can be done concurrently to other things going on with all of this.
Yes.
And yeah, so then it's just a matter of getting the property transaction done so the park district can commence their work.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the silver lining on all this is we're doing the kind of long timeline stuff right now. And once the property is controlled by the park district, construction of the park itself will be relatively quick, probably just 6 months or so. So once we get to
So-
that point, we should be able to move quickly.
So it sounds to me, talking through all the particulars, that Mike, it's on you to get the paperwork to everybody ASAP, because those are the checklist items in the alley. And again, to be fair to you, we'll go on site to talk through the alley thing. My gut tells me the answer is going to be the same, at which point it's based on you getting the paperwork to Arthur, or Matt getting it to Arthur, and then getting the alley done. And so,
I think,
yeah.
excuse me, I think we can get this paperwork right away. I think we've done it a couple times. I think that the alley is something that, when I talk about taking, we have a couple weeks work. I mean, but we have, the weather has, we had bad weather last week. Although we did get the curb built, next week's supposed to be nice. We could put a binder coat down. I mean, maybe there's a way to do this which can speed this whole thing up. I mean, we want to speed it up, our tenants want to speed it up too, so.
Oh, I think I'll say, and I don't think it's been a secret, I got neighbors ready to protest because they want this thing moving. So,
My neighbors, I mean, my tenants want to protest.
yeah, you're about to be a protest sandwich if it ain't moving. So the two things I'd impress are, one, let's get the paperwork, because it's paperwork, right? And then we'll all go to the alley together. If it's warm enough to get the ball rolling on that and you're able to get asphalt, I say wrap that thing up. And that would allow us to be able to move quicker. And I think at that point, you are starting in summer. You may not complete because to Sarah's point, it might take 6 months to get the ball, and depending how the weather affects that, but at least you got movement where something is going forward. Sounds fair to everybody?
I think, so we need to meet out there. I mean, we could meet Monday.
Yeah,
We need Sarah. I don't know, CDOT needs to be out there.
we're gonna have Sarah, CDOT, you, me, the neighbors, all of us on site. Heck, we'll get a camera rolling. I don't care. I want to make sure we're all there, can talk through it, look through this thing, walk away with the next steps, and hold everybody accountable to it. Because that's what's gotten us this far, because it definitely wasn't where we're currently at prior to this. So we just got to take it over this last leg to get the work started.
So what day would you like to do that?
So I'm down to double check. Lindsay's on the call, but what we'll do is we'll send an email to Bill, Mike, Sarah, myself, and then we'll include Scott on there. So between those 5 parties, we'll lock in a date. I'm guessing it'll be a morning to go with there and sort it all out.
Yeah, I'll have to make sure that we have one of our perimeter restoration experts, the engineering section and alley construction section out there. I am not an engineer, so I don't claim to be. And we want those experts there to be able to address any questions you might have.
Yeah, I just figure right now you're the point of contact, so we'll include you in the email, CC whoever we need to. That way we can sort it all out, but we'll get everybody on one email for accountability.
Happy to coordinate. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for that, Bill.
So, but what are we talking about? The next couple of days or next week or?
I'm an ASAP kind of guy. If I think everyone's available tomorrow, I'll be there in the morning. But I want to make sure that when we're talking to CDOT, that they're able to get the folks that they need as well as the different parties. So that's why we'll get everybody in the same email to sort out the date and time. And we'll have Scott on the email for accountability with the neighbors. So that way they're all on board and we can have somebody from the local block club there.
Is there somebody here is there someone on the call from ComEd?
Yeah, we'll include Omar as well. And is that cool with you, Omar?
Yeah, definitely. Just keep me posted.
I'm sorry, Omar.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, I'm glad you asked that. So we'll get Omar as well. So all the pertinent parties for this thing, we'll do one meeting, all of us there, get all this thing sorted out. And then within that time, Mike, what I'd like for you to do is get Matt to send all the relevant paperwork over to Arthur, because that's just paperwork.
Yeah.
All right.
And sorry to interrupt, but Matt is diligent. I think, once he hears that ask, he will turn it around pretty quickly. So.
Cool. And we got this all recorded, so we can send him a video. You can watch through the whole thing, get all the details and everything.
Oh, Matt insists he's done this 10 times, so it doesn't matter, it's everybody else's fault.
Let's go for number 10.
Yeah.
So, all right. And then I guess the question by Jonathan Cooper, what's going on with the last empty lot by the park? Jonathan, if you want to unmute and kind of clarify in case it's something that hasn't been discussed.
Yeah, there's an empty lot beside the park, beside 1635. Just curious what's going on with that.
That belongs to me. There's nothing. As soon as somebody, we didn't want to bring any equipment in there until the park district started bringing soil in, and then we'll build a buffer so that to stop the park.
Is the intention to build one more house there?
Yeah, it's a single family lot.
Yeah.
Have you sold the lot?
No, we haven't. I mean,
Okay.
unless you want to buy it.
Nice.
Well, I won't get into that in this public forum, but I tried to buy it for a year from you and double offered the price, but your real estate agent wasn't easy to work with. So I'll leave it at that and go back on mute. Thank you.
It's hard to believe somebody that does.
I gotta love the smooth sailing here. All right, so cool. So I think we've got plan of action. We're gonna get everybody an email to figure this out. It seems like, knock on wood or whatever else, that if we get the paperwork in the alley done, we can then see a lot more movement on this as far as like it transferring from Mike over to the city and then having Park District being able to move forward on this thing. So that to me sounds like where we're at on next steps. Let me see another question. Can we have the chain link running along Hollywood between the street and new sidewalk removed now that sidewalk is complete? I'm assuming that's a question for Mike, and
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. Chain link, what between,
on Hollywood, between the street and the new sidewalk removed now that the
Yeah,
sidewalk is complete.
yeah, I suppose we can. We only need it where the, where it falls off.
Sarah, you said you got something there?
I just want to make sure that if you move the fence, move it behind the sidewalk, but keep the site enclosed because there is a 2-foot drop off between the sidewalk and the site. And we'd
Well,
like to
yeah.
keep it secure. Yeah.
Okay. Who is responsible for shoveling the sidewalk adjacent to the park? It has been spotty. I'm
Well,
gonna
yeah.
guess currently that's Mike, right?
I guess so. I mean, we've been maintaining that fence for several years. Not that well, but I mean,
Well, this is more the shoveling on the sidewalk once it's snowing, right? If that's
no, I
technically still
understand.
yours.
I guess that whole thing is ours, but we'd like to get rid of it,
Yeah, all it takes
yeah.
is you getting the alley done, passing the paperwork over, and then it's no longer your problem. Right?
Yeah.
That is what we're talking about here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so until that point, you, like me during the snowstorms, are gonna be shoveling out there or figuring it out.
I'll meet
But
you out there.
that would be more, yeah, I'll be there with the camera. So
Yeah.
that'll be more incentive for you to get the alley and the paperwork done. So that way it's not something that's your responsibility.
Like the alderman's trying to cut through all this shit. Maybe that's why it's public.
I'm doing what I can, home folder. All right, so next up, if you want to, let's mute that. There you go. All right, so we got that. Last step will be the rearrangement of the direction of the streets. I don't think that that's been finalized as far as the arrangement of the direction of the street, Suzanne. I know there have been conversations, but I don't believe formally there's been anything like decided on as far as changing street directions yet.
So that's a final discussion that I would think has to take place since you've got a street that only goes halfway down the block.
Oh yeah, you'll be correct. Just like all the amazing things that happen here, you got to check with those neighbors at first. And if they end up with a pushback, then we have a whole different Zoom call happening. But
Exactly.
I agree, it's something that we got to discuss. First is make sure we get the park stuff done before we get into that conversation, or at least figure out a time to have that conversation with neighbors.
Okay.
Yep. Good point though. And then ES is concept A, the final rendering. I think according to Sarah, she said there'll be a 95% one coming up, but that is what we're looking at as far as what it should look like. All righty. Any other questions? All right, then we find ourselves with two minutes to
There's one
spare.
last question. There's one last question there from Lisa.
Oh, okay.
Which streets are we talking about reversing? But I think your point was there was some talk about it, but there's no real firm conversation about which street or either that if it was to happen, Department of Transportation would first have to do a traffic study and
Correct.
lots of community input. It's not anything that's going to happen anytime soon.
Right, and I think it would be challenging to do that concurrently with all this going on, but I think that is a discussion to have with the neighbors, and happy to have it once we get to that point.
Could I just add, a traffic study was completed by CDOT and your office has it.
Got it. So we'll pull that up and send that on over. I off the head right now can't recall what the determination might have been on that, so we'll look at it. And thank you for that. Thank you for bringing it up. Alrighty, so I guess we'll add that to the action items as we'll get the study sent to make sure Scott and the neighbors see that and see what the determination has been. But we'll do that on a separate track from this. I want to make sure this is something we're focused on as far as the park to get that going. Alrighty. Any other questions? All right, then it is 6:30 on the dot, going once, going twice.
All right, thank you, Andre, for pulling it all together. Like I said, everybody's anxious to get things done. And we'll look forward to meeting up with you all next week. And the WARE group will put out an update summary based on that. We have a newsletter coming out in a few weeks, and we'll keep the community informed as we work through these.
Totally. And what we'll do is, as far as this link, we'll get a link to this recording for anybody that wants to get like the nitty gritty details on the conversation and get that to you so you can get that sent out via the newsletter also. Cool. Awesome. Thank you all so much. Have a good evening. Get some dinner if you haven't already, and we'll keep you all updated as things progress. I really appreciate getting everybody in this call, and we'll talk soon. Cool.
I appreciate it.
Alderman.
Thanks,
Take care, all.
everyone.
Thank you
Take care.
very much. We'll be
Thank you.
available anytime that you guys can coordinate your time, okay?
100%. Thank you for that, Mike. I appreciate it.
Understood.
Okay, thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye-bye.